I'm Ricky, 32 years old, and I own a small but growing catering business in Boston. Cooking has been my passion since I was tall enough to reach the stove, and I've built my company from nothing but hard work and determination. When my cousin Melissa got engaged, I was genuinely happy for her. Then came the bombshell: she wanted me to cater her 200-guest wedding completely free of charge. Little did I know this request would lead to one of the biggest family disasters I've ever experienced. Before I tell you how this wedding catastrophe unfolded, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had a family member try to take advantage of your professional skills. My catering business, Flavors of Boston, isn't the biggest operation in the city, but we've built a solid reputation for delivering exceptional food at high-end events. The journey to where I am now wasn't easy. After graduating from culinary school with honors, I spent nearly a decade working in various restaurants, starting as a line cook, and eventually becoming a sous chef at one of Boston's most prestigious establishments. Every extra dollar I earned went straight into my savings account, all dedicated to my dream of starting my own business. 3 years ago, that dream finally became reality when I launched Flavors of Boston. The beginning was rough, with me doing almost everything myself, from cooking to deliveries to accounting. But gradually I built a small team of dedicated professionals who shared my passion for food. Marcus, my sous chef and best friend since culinary school, was the first to join. He believed in my vision when it was nothing but talk over beers after long shifts. Then came Alicia and Pete, my primary servers, who bring a level of professionalism and warmth to every event we cater. We specialize in intimate gatherings and corporate events, typically for groups of 50 to 100 people. Our reputation has been growing steadily, with most of our business coming from word-of-mouth referrals. Every cent of profit goes back into the business, upgrading equipment and expanding our capabilities. It's not making me rich, but it's my life's work, and I couldn't be prouder of what we've built. As for Melissa, she's my first cousin on my mother's side. The only daughter of my wealthy Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert. Melissa has always been the golden child of the family. Growing up, I watched as she received everything she ever wanted. The newest toys, designer clothes, luxury cars when she turned 16, and an all-expenses-paid education at an elite private college. Don't get me wrong, I love Melissa, but there's no denying she's been spoiled her entire life. The announcement of Melissa's engagement came during a family dinner at my grandmother's house last winter. Everyone was gathered around the massive oak dining table that had hosted family gatherings for generations. The meal was winding down when Melissa clinked her glass, dramatically stood up with a glowing smile, and announced that her boyfriend James, a successful investment banker from a well-connected Boston family, had proposed during their vacation in the Maldives. The room erupted in excitement. Champagne appeared from somewhere, toasts were made, and Melissa beamed as she showed off her enormous diamond ring. In the midst of the celebration, she casually turned to me and said, "Ricky, you'll help out with the food for the wedding, right?" At first, I thought she was asking for vendor recommendations, or maybe wanted me to prepare a special dish for the reception. "Sure, what did you have in mind?" I asked. "Well," she said, swirling her champagne, "we're thinking about 200 guests. Nothing too fancy, just appetizers, a 3-course dinner, and late-night snacks. Oh, and a dessert table besides the cake." The conversation around us had quieted as family members tuned in. I nearly choked on my drink. What she was describing wasn't helping out. It was a full-scale catering job that would cost upwards of $20,000 and require my entire team plus additional staff. "Melissa, that's a major catering job," I explained carefully. "For 200 people, you're looking at roughly $20,000 minimum, depending on your menu choices. Plus, I'd need to hire extra servers and rent additional equipment." Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose in surprise. "20,000? That's ridiculous. It's just food." "It's not just food," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "It's ingredients, labor, equipment, transportation, setup, service, cleanup." "But we're family," she interrupted, as if that single fact should invalidate the laws of business and economics. Then came the line that would echo in my head for months to come. "It'll be great exposure for your little business." I felt my face flush. Everyone was watching now. My business doesn't need exposure. We're fully booked 3 months out. Aunt Patricia chimed in. Ricky, don't be difficult. This is Melissa's special day. I looked around the table, hoping someone would back me up, but most eyes were cast downward, avoiding the conflict. My brother Jake caught my eye and gave me a subtle nod of support but remained silent. Can we discuss this later? I suggested, not wanting to ruin the engagement announcement. Melissa reached across the table and grabbed my hand, her eyes suddenly brimming with tears. Don't you want to be part of my special day? I always imagined having your food at my wedding. And there it was, the emotional manipulation that I should have seen coming from a mile away. Trapped between family expectations and business sense, I mumbled something about discussing details later and excused myself to help with the dishes, my mind already spinning with the disaster that was unfolding. The calls started the very next morning. First was Aunt Patricia, her voice honey-sweet, but with that underlying steel I'd known since childhood. Ricky, darling, I just wanted to check in about Melissa's wedding. You know how important this is to her. I understand it's important, Aunt Patricia, but what she's asking would cost my business thousands of dollars. I'd need to pay my staff, buy ingredients, rent equipment. Well, I just assumed you'd want to give her this as your wedding gift, she interrupted. After all, we've done so much for you over the years. I racked my brain trying to remember what exactly they had done for me besides the occasional birthday check and Christmas gifts. Unlike Melissa, I had worked through college, took out student loans for culinary school, and built my business without family financial support. I'm happy to give her a wedding gift, I replied. But this would be like asking Uncle Robert to give her a free house as his gift. The comparison didn't land well. That's completely different, and you know it, she snapped, her sweet tone evaporating. Your uncle is a successful real estate developer. You just cook food. I bit my tongue to keep from responding with something I'd regret. I need to get to work, Aunt Patricia. We can talk more later. Uncle Robert called that afternoon, his approach more direct. Son, you need to step up for family. This wedding is connecting us to the Sullivan family. Do you know how influential they are in Boston? James's father sits on the boards of 3 major banks. The implication was clear: this wedding was as much a business merger as a romantic union, at least in my uncle's eyes. The pressure continued through the week, with various family members calling to just check in and inevitably steering the conversation toward how I could help make Melissa's day special. At the restaurant the following Monday, I was prepping for a corporate lunch when Marcus noticed my distraction. You've seasoned that same batch of potatoes 3 times, he pointed out, leaning against the stainless steel prep table. What's going on? I put down the salt and explained the situation. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly incredulous. Your cousin wants you to cater for 200 people for free. That's not a favor, that's exploitation, he said when I finished. Remember what happened with my sister's baby shower? I made those specialty cupcakes as a gift, and suddenly everyone expected free baked goods for every family event. It took years to break that cycle. But this is different, I said, not entirely convinced of my own argument. It's her wedding. Which makes it worse. Weddings are the most expensive and demanding events we do. If anything, she should be supporting your business by hiring you properly and paying full price. Deep down, I knew he was right. That evening, I called Melissa and suggested a compromise. I can't do it for free, but I could offer you my services at cost or give you a significant family discount. She agreed to meet to discuss options, suggesting a trendy coffee shop in Back Bay. The following day, I arrived to find Melissa already seated with her fiancé, James. A tall, athletic man with an easy smile and the confident air of someone who's never worried about money a day in his life. Ricky, so good to finally meet you, James said, standing to shake my hand. Melissa says you're a culinary genius. That's very kind, I replied, somewhat surprised by the compliment. Congratulations on your engagement. We ordered coffee, and I pulled out a folder containing sample menus and cost breakdowns I'd prepared. I've put together some options that might work with your vision, I explained. This first one would be my actual cost. Ingredients, staff, wages, equipment, rental. The second has a 25% discount from my normal rates. James studied the papers with interest. These look excellent, actually. The seafood station is particularly $20,000 is still ridiculous, Melissa cut in, not even glancing at the menus. We contacted other caterers who would do it for half that. Then perhaps you should hire them, I suggested gently. But they're not family, she countered. Do you know how many of my friends will be at this wedding? People who throw parties constantly. Other caterers would kill for this opportunity. I took a deep breath and decided to break it down as clearly as possible. Let me explain what goes into a wedding like yours. For 200 guests, we need approximately 400 pounds of ingredients costing roughly $6,000. My staff would include 8 servers working 12-hour days at $25 an hour. That's $2,400 in labor alone. Then there's equipment rental, transportation, liability insurance. But it'll be featured in Boston Society magazine. Melissa interrupted as if that settled everything. James's mother is on the board. Think of the publicity. Melissa James interjected carefully. Maybe we should consider Ricky's discount option. It seems reasonable. No, she said firmly. My cousin should want to be part of this special day. If he really cared about me, he wouldn't be nickel and diming my wedding. The conversation deteriorated from there. Melissa's voice rose with each exchange, drawing glances from nearby tables. When I tried once more to explain the financial reality, she burst into tears. I can't believe you're ruining this for me, she sobbed loudly. All I wanted was your support on the most important day of my life. James looked uncomfortable, caught between supporting his fiancée and recognizing the unreasonableness of her request. He mouthed sorry to me over Melissa's bowed head. I'd had enough. Standing up, I gathered my materials and said as calmly as possible, I love you, Melissa, but I can't do what you're asking. Call me when you're ready to discuss realistic options. Walking away, I felt a knot in my stomach. Part of me wondered if I was being selfish or overly rigid. The other part knew I was protecting not just my business but my self-respect. The Sunday after my disastrous coffee shop meeting with Melissa, our extended family gathered at grandmother's house for our monthly family dinner. These dinners had been a tradition since before I was born, a time when everyone set aside differences and came together over good food and conversation. This particular Sunday, however, the atmosphere was charged with tension from the moment I arrived. Grandmother's colonial-style home in Brookline had always been a sanctuary filled with the comforting smells of home cooking and the warmth of family. As I entered the familiar living room with its well-worn furniture and family photos covering every surface, conversations hushed momentarily before resuming with forced cheerfulness. Aunt Patricia barely acknowledged my greeting, busying herself with rearranging an already perfect table setting. Uncle Robert gave me a curt nod before returning to his conversation with my father. Only grandmother welcomed me with her usual warm embrace, whispering, "Whatever's happening, it will pass. Family always finds a way back to each other." I wished I could share her optimism. Dinner began pleasantly enough with discussions about the unusually warm spring weather and my cousin Thomas's new job. Then, inevitably, the conversation turned to Melissa's wedding plans. We found the most exquisite venue, Aunt Patricia announced. The Harrington Estate. They only host 5 weddings a year, but they made an exception for us because of Robert's connections. And the flowers will be imported directly from Holland, Melissa added. The florist says the arrangement will be absolutely breathtaking. My mother, always the peacemaker, asked, "Have you sorted out the catering arrangements?" The table fell silent. All eyes turned to me. "We're still figuring that out," Melissa said stiffly. I offered Melissa a significant family discount, I explained, trying to keep my voice neutral, but we couldn't come to an agreement on terms. Aunt Patricia put down her fork with a clatter. "Terms? She's your cousin, not a business client." "My business is my livelihood," I replied. "I employ people who depend on their salaries to pay rent and feed their families." "It's just one day," Uncle Robert joined in. "Surely you can make an exception." "Would you give away a house for free, Uncle Robert?" I asked. "Even to family?" His face reddened. "That's completely different. Real estate is a serious business. And catering isn't." My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "All Melissa wants is your signature dish. At her special day," my aunt continued. "Is that really too much to ask?" Her special day involves feeding 200 people a 3-course meal plus appetizers and desserts, I clarified. That's thousands of dollars in costs that I would have to cover personally. My father cleared his throat. Ricky has a point about the costs involved. Perhaps there's a middle ground. I already offered several compromises, I said. All rejected. Because they weren't really compromises, Melissa snapped. You were still asking for thousands of dollars. My brother Jake, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. Are you serious right now? Ricky built his business from nothing. No one handed him anything. And now you expect him to potentially bankrupt himself for your wedding. A wedding, by the way, that's already costing more than most people make in a year. Stay out of this, Jake, Aunt Patricia warned. No, I don't think I will, Jake continued. You've always expected everyone to bend over backward for Melissa. When does it stop? When she wants a free house from Uncle Robert. Free legal advice for life from Cousin Sarah. Where's the line? Aunt Patricia's face contorted with anger. How dare you speak to me like that? After everything we've done for this family. What exactly have you done? Jake challenged. Write checks from the fortune Grandpa left you. Throw lavish parties to impress your friends. Meanwhile, Ricky worked 60-hour weeks to build something of his own, and you treat it like it's a hobby he should happily set aside. That's enough. My grandmother's voice, rarely raised, cut through the argument like a knife. I will not have my family tearing each other apart at my table. A heavy silence fell. Grandmother looked around at each of us, her disappointment palpable. Whatever disagreements you have, you will find a respectful way to resolve them. We are family, and that means something in this house. The remainder of the dinner was painfully polite, with conversation limited to safe topics like the weather and recent movies. As we helped clear the table, my cousin Sarah, a lawyer who had remained silent during the argument, pulled me aside in the kitchen. I think you're right to stand your ground, she whispered. But please don't tell anyone I said that. I can't afford to get on Aunt Patricia's bad side right now. Why not? I asked. She's on the board of the hospital where I'm trying to get a position in the legal department, Sarah admitted. Family politics, right. After dinner, I was loading leftovers into my car when my parents approached. We understand your position, my mother said gently. But sometimes keeping peace in the family is worth making sacrifices. Even if those sacrifices could bankrupt me, I asked. My father sighed. Of course not. But maybe there's a solution we haven't thought of yet. Something that would let you help without taking such a financial hit. I've proposed every compromise I can think of, I replied. At some point, I have to protect myself and my business. We know, son, my father said, squeezing my shoulder. Just try to keep the door open for reconciliation. As I drove home, my phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. Thanks for ruining dinner, too. If your business is so successful, why can't you help your own family? Maybe you're not as good a chef as you think you are. The passive-aggressive message stung more than it should have. Despite knowing I was in the right, part of me still felt like the villain in this family drama. The next day, I received a call from my aunt. Ricky, I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, she began without preamble. Yes, I replied cautiously. Perhaps we've been approaching this from the wrong angle. Melissa's wedding is an opportunity for you to showcase your skills to Boston's elite. Many of our guests own restaurants or host large events regularly. I appreciate that, Aunt Patricia, but... And it's not like your business is a major operation, she continued, as if I hadn't spoken. It's more of a, what do they call it? A side hustle. You still have time to build a real career if this doesn't work out. I was momentarily speechless. My side hustle involved 16-hour days, every penny I had, and the livelihoods of several employees. My business is very real, Aunt Patricia, I finally managed. And I've explained why I can't provide free catering for such a large event. Well, she replied coolly, I suppose we'll see how real it is when word gets around that you refuse to help your own family. Boston's a small town in some ways, Ricky. The threat was thinly veiled but clear: cooperate, or face potential damage to my reputation in the tight-knit Boston social circles where much of my business came from. As I hung up the phone, I realized the family divide was wider than I'd imagined, and the stakes were becoming uncomfortably high. 3 weeks after the tense family dinner, I was in the middle of a busy Friday night service at a corporate event when my phone started buzzing incessantly in my pocket. Assuming it was related to the event, I stepped into a quiet corner to check it. 6 missed calls from Melissa. It was nearly 9 o'clock. What could possibly be so urgent? I texted her quickly. In the middle of catering an event. Is everything okay? Her response came immediately. Need to see you. Coming to your restaurant after. My stomach dropped. Confronting Melissa during an active event was the last thing I needed, but there was little I could do to stop her. I alerted Marcus, who nodded grimly. I'll handle things here if she causes a scene, he assured me. The rest of the event passed in a blur of anxiety. We finished serving the main course and I was discussing dessert timing with the client when Marcus caught my eye and nodded toward the entrance. Melissa had arrived impeccably dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than our monthly rent for the restaurant space. Keep things running, I told Marcus. I'll deal with this quickly. I approached Melissa, conscious of the curious glances from staff and guests. This isn't a good time, I said quietly. We're in the middle of service. This won't take long, she replied, her voice carrying more than necessary. I just need to know definitively. Are you going to cater my wedding or not? Several guests turned to look. I guided Melissa toward the small office at the back of the venue, closing the door behind us. You know my position, I said. I can't do it for free, but I've offered several compromises. Which aren't acceptable, she countered. Do you know what family means, Ricky? It means supporting each other. When you needed help. Moving into your first apartment, who rented the truck. When you were saving for culinary school, who gave you $500 for your birthday. I remembered the truck. Uncle Robert had indeed helped with that. And the birthday money had been generous. But these gestures, while appreciated, hardly equaled the $20,000 in services she was now demanding. I'm grateful for everything the family has done for me, I said carefully. But what you're asking would seriously harm my business. I have employees who depend on their paychecks. I have other clients who've booked us months in advance. More important clients than me, she challenged. Clients who are paying for our services, I clarified. Look, I want to be part of your wedding. I've offered to do it at cost. I've offered a significant discount. I've even offered to create a special signature dish just for your reception. But I can't do the entire event for free. Melissa's expression hardened. She stood straighter, smoothing her designer dress. So that's your final answer. You're choosing money over family. I'm choosing the sustainability of my business and the welfare of my employees over an unreasonable request, I corrected. She gave me a look I'd seen many times throughout our childhood. The same look she'd given when she didn't get her way with our grandparents. The same expression before she inevitably got whatever she wanted despite initial refusals. Fine, she said, her voice cold. I'll find someone better. Someone who understands what family really means. Then came the infamous eye roll that would later prove so prophetic. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. Don't expect an invitation to the wedding. I wouldn't want to burden you with attending an event you clearly care so little about. After she left, I leaned against the desk, my hands trembling slightly with the adrenaline of confrontation. The relief of finally standing my ground was mixed with genuine anxiety about the family repercussions. Would this permanently damage my relationship with Melissa? Would Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert follow through on their veiled threats about hurting my reputation in Boston? The following day, I met with my friend Rachel, a lawyer who specialized in small business issues. Over coffee, I explained the situation, including my aunt's implied threat. Could they actually damage my business reputation, I asked. Rachel considered this. Legally speaking, if they spread false information about your business practices, that could constitute defamation, but realistically it would be hard to prove, and family disputes like this rarely benefit from legal escalation. So what should I do? Document everything she advised. Save texts, emails, any written communications about this issue. If anyone does try to damage your professional reputation, you'll want evidence of what actually transpired. She paused, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. But honestly, Ricky, the best protection is the quality of your work. Boston's food scene is tight-knit, but professionals talk to each other. If your food and service are consistently excellent, A family squabble won't change that." Her words reassured me somewhat, but the knot of anxiety remained. That evening, I threw myself into work collaborating with Marcus on a high-profile charity gala we were catering the following week. The kitchen was my sanctuary, a place where problems had clear solutions, where creativity and precision yielded tangible, immediate results. As we tested a new appetizer recipe, Marcus watched me with concern. "You know you're doing the right thing, right?" I nodded, though, without full conviction. "This business isn't just about you," he continued. "It's about all of us. Alicia's saving for grad school. Pete just had a baby. If we did a 200-person wedding for free, we'd all feel it." He was right, of course. The business I'd built wasn't just my livelihood. It supported a small community of dedicated professionals who trusted me with their financial well-being. 2 days later, an elegant cream envelope arrived in my mail, Melissa's wedding invitation. I was surprised, given her parting words during our last encounter. Opening it, I found a formal invitation, along with a handwritten note. "Ricky, despite our disagreement, you're still family. I've found another caterer who's excited about the opportunity to showcase their talents at our special day. Perhaps attending as a guest will help you understand what you're missing out on professionally. Melissa." The passive-aggressive tone was unmistakable. This wasn't an olive branch. It was another attempt to make me feel guilty and inadequate. For days I agonized over whether to attend. On one hand, missing a family wedding would only deepen the rift. On the other, watching another caterer serve food at an event I'd been deemed not good enough to cater felt like deliberate humiliation. After much consideration, I made my decision. I wouldn't attend the wedding. Instead, I accepted a catering job for that day, a small, intimate anniversary party that would keep me busy and productive rather than stewing in family drama. I texted Melissa my regrets. "I'm sorry I won't be able to attend your wedding. I've accepted a catering job that day that I can't reschedule. I sincerely wish you and James all the happiness in the world and hope your day is everything you've dreamed of." Days passed with no response. The silence was somehow worse than anger, feeding my anxiety about the lasting damage to our relationship. But I stood firm in my decision, knowing it was necessary for both my business integrity and my self-respect. The day of Melissa's wedding arrived with perfect weather, clear blue skies and mild temperatures that wedding planners dream of. While she would be walking down the aisle at the prestigious Harrington estate, I was setting up for a 30th anniversary party at a waterfront home in Marblehead. The event was small, just 40 guests, but the clients were warm and appreciative, treating my team with respect and genuine gratitude for our work. Despite my best efforts to focus on the job at hand, my thoughts kept drifting to the wedding. Had I made a terrible mistake by not attending? Would this decision haunt our family relationships for years to come? Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Everything looking good so far. Venue is incredible. We'll keep you posted." I felt a wave of gratitude for my brother. Though he defended me vigorously during family discussions, he'd still chosen to attend the wedding, partly to support Melissa, but also, I suspected, to be my eyes and ears at the event. The anniversary party was going smoothly. We'd served a selection of upscale appetizers and were preparing the main course when Jake's next update came through. "Ceremony. Beautiful. Melissa gorgeous. Reception starting now. Caterer seems professional. Staff in matching uniforms, everything set up nicely." A part of me felt relieved. Perhaps everything would turn out fine after all, and the family drama would fade once the wedding was over. By 6 o'clock, we were serving dessert at the anniversary party. The couple had requested a special chocolate soufflé, a technically challenging dish that required precise timing. As I carefully removed the perfectly risen soufflés from the oven, my phone vibrated repeatedly in my pocket. Once the desserts were safely delivered to appreciative guests, I checked my messages. Jake had sent several texts in quick succession. Something weird happening with food. Only half the appetizers that were listed on menu actually served. Main course an hour late. People getting restless. Food finally arrived. Portions tiny. Several people at my table got chicken that's still pink inside. Disaster unfolding. 2 guests already complained about undercooked food. Melissa in tears in bathroom. James's mother confronting caterer. Apparently they massively underbid to get the contract and weren't prepared for this size event. My stomach churned as I read the messages. While a petty part of me felt vindicated, the larger part felt genuine sympathy for Melissa. No one deserves to have their wedding day ruined regardless of prior behavior. More texts followed throughout the evening. Several guests now sick. Someone called health inspector. James's father furious. Heard him telling Melissa they should have hired a professional instead of trying to save money. Caterer left. Just packed up and left after health inspector arrived. No dessert served. Reception ending early. James's mother telling everyone they're reconsidering their wedding gift, the house down payment. Melissa hysterical. As our event concluded successfully with happy clients and generous tips for the staff, I couldn't help but contrast it with the disaster unfolding at what should have been Melissa's perfect day. The final text from Jake came as we were packing up our equipment. Complete catastrophe. Many guests left early. James's parents having very public argument with Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert about embarrassing their family and friends. Heard your name mentioned several times. Not in a good way. At first then someone said they should have listened to you. I didn't respond to Jake's messages. What could I say? I told you so? Seemed cruel given the circumstances. Instead, I focused on finishing our event professionally, ensuring every detail was perfect and every client need met. By the time I arrived home, exhausted from the long day, my phone showed multiple missed calls from various family members. Aunt Patricia, Uncle Robert, my parents, and even Melissa herself. I couldn't face any of them tonight. Whatever fallout was occurring needed to wait until morning when emotions might be less raw and I could approach the situation with a clear head. I turned off my phone, took a long shower and collapsed into bed, mentally preparing for the storm that would inevitably break the next day. Despite the vindication I felt, my last thoughts before drifting off to sleep were of Melissa's tears and disappointed guests. No matter how unreasonable she had been, I never wanted this outcome for her. I woke up the next morning to the persistent buzz of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. Bleary-eyed, I checked the screen. 23 missed calls, 47 text messages, and multiple voicemails. The wedding aftermath was in full swing, and apparently I was central to whatever was happening now. The most recent call was from Melissa, just 5 minutes ago. With a deep breath, I listened to her voicemail first. "Ricky, it's me." Her voice was hoarse, presumably from crying. "I know I'm the last person you want to talk to right now, but please call me back. Everything's a complete disaster. James's parents are threatening to cancel their wedding gift. Half the guests got food poisoning, and now we need to provide food for a brunch with James's family today. I know I don't deserve your help, but please call me back." I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. The other voicemails told similar stories from different perspectives. Aunt Patricia's message had none of her previous entitlement, instead sounding desperate and apologetic. Uncle Robert actually used the words "I was wrong," possibly a first in family history. I called Melissa back immediately. She answered on the first ring. "Ricky, oh, thank God," she sounded exhausted and tearful. "I'm so sorry to bother you." "What happened, Melissa?" I asked, cutting through what would likely be a long apology. "We could deal with that later. Right now I needed facts." She took a shuddering breath. "The caterer we hired, Elegant Eats. They seemed so professional at first. Their portfolio looked amazing, and their price was significantly lower than others we contacted. But it was all a facade." "What went wrong?" "Everything," she said with a hollow laugh. "They brought half the staff they promised. The food wasn't what we ordered. They substituted cheaper ingredients everywhere. Worse, they clearly weren't following proper food safety protocols. The chicken was raw, Ricky. Raw, at my wedding." I winced. In the catering world, there were few sins greater than serving unsafe food. "The health department was called," she continued. "They shut down the service immediately. By then, several guests were already ill, including James's grandmother. The caterers just packed up and left. No apology, nothing. They're not even answering their phones now." "I'm sorry that happened," I said, and meant it. "That's truly awful." "That's not even the worst part," Melissa's voice cracked. James's parents had planned to give us a down payment for a house as a wedding gift. Now they're reconsidering because they think we deliberately cut corners on the food to save money, putting their friends and family at risk. I could hear the genuine distress in her voice. This wasn't just about a ruined party. There were real, lasting consequences to what had happened. "What can I do to help?" I asked, already knowing where this was heading. "We have a brunch scheduled today at 11 for James's immediate family and the wedding party. It was supposed to be a casual send-off before our honeymoon, but now it feels like our only chance to salvage something from this disaster. Is there any way, any possibility at all, that you could help us?" I glanced at the clock. 7:30. Less than 4 hours to potentially prepare a meal for what would likely be 30 to 40 people. "Where is the brunch being held?" "At James's parents' home in Beacon Hill," she replied. "I know it's asking a lot, especially after everything." "I'll need to check with my team," I interrupted. "This is incredibly last minute, and after working yesterday, they might not all be available." "I understand completely," she said quickly. "And Ricky, this isn't like before. We'll pay your full rate plus a rush fee, whatever you think is fair. I was wrong before so wrong. I should have valued your work properly from the beginning." The words I'd been waiting to hear, though. I took little pleasure in the circumstances that had forced this realization. "Let me make some calls and get back to you within the hour," I promised. After hanging up, I immediately called Marcus. Despite having worked a full day yesterday, he answered with his usual cheerfulness. "Morning, boss. What's up?" I explained the situation as concisely as possible. There was a long pause before he responded. "Let me get this straight. Your cousin, who wanted us to cater her entire wedding for free, who threw a tantrum when you refused, who hired a budget caterer, that gave everyone food poisoning now, wants us to swoop in and save the day with a few hours' notice." "That's about the size of it," I admitted. "And you're considering it?" He sounded incredulous. "She's family, Marcus, and she's offering to pay our full rate plus a rush fee. Are you sure you're not being manipulated again? This feels like another family obligation trap." It was a fair question, and one I'd asked myself. "I don't think so. This is different. She's acknowledged she was wrong and she's willing to pay properly. Plus, this isn't just about Melissa anymore. Innocent people got sick. James's family is reconsidering a major wedding gift that would help them buy a home." Marcus sighed. "You're too good a person, sometimes you know that. But if we're doing this, we're doing it right. Triple rate for the rush job, full team compensation, and I want it in writing before we start prep." "Agreed," I said, grateful for his pragmatism. "Can you call Alicia and Pete? I'll reach out to the others." "On it. And Ricky, make sure your cousin understands this is a professional transaction, not a family favor. Clear boundaries from the start." I called Melissa back with the terms triple our usual rate due to the emergency nature of the request, payment required up front via electronic transfer, and a clear written agreement about expectations and services. To her credit, she agreed immediately to all conditions. The money was transferred within minutes, and she sent a formal email outlining her acceptance of our terms. The next 3 hours were a whirlwind of activity. We raided our restaurant supplies, made emergency purchases from restaurant supply stores that had just opened, and designed a menu based on what we could realistically prepare in the limited time available. By 10:30, we arrived at the elegant Beacon Hill brownstone, owned by James's parents' equipment and ingredients in tow. The tension in the house was palpable. James's mother, a stern-looking woman with impeccable posture, watched our every move with skepticism. His father remained in his study, apparently unwilling to engage with anything wedding-related after the previous day's disaster. We transformed their kitchen into a professional operation with practiced efficiency. Marcus took charge of the main dishes while I prepared a selection of pastries and breakfast items that could be ready quickly. Alicia and Pete set up a mimosa bar and coffee station in the dining room, their friendly professionalism slowly thawing the frosty atmosphere. James approached as I was arranging a platter of fresh fruit. "I want to thank you for doing this," he said quietly. "I know the situation with Melissa put you in a difficult position before the wedding." "Water under the bridge," I assured him. "Today is about moving forward." Still, he hesitated. "I should tell you that I wanted to hire you properly from the start. I even offered to pay for it myself, but Melissa was, well determined to handle it her way. This revelation didn't surprise me, but it explained some of his discomfort during our coffee shop meeting. "What matters now is making this brunch special for your family," I said. "Give them something positive to remember from the wedding weekend." By 11, guests began to arrive. Family members and close friends still recovering from the wedding disaster. Many looked pale and tired, eyeing the food with understandable suspicion. I personally greeted each one, explaining the dishes we'd prepared and assuring them of our professional standards. The brunch itself went better than anyone could have expected. The food was simple but elegant. A selection of quiches, Belgian waffles with fresh berries, smoked salmon, with all the accompaniments, and my signature herb-roasted breakfast potatoes that had once been featured in Boston Magazine. Gradually the mood lightened. Conversation flowed more easily. Laughter occasionally broke through the earlier tension, and several guests made a point of complimenting the food. James's mother, initially so skeptical, pulled me aside mid-event. "This is exactly what should have happened yesterday," she said. "Professional, elegant, and most importantly edible." Her attempt at humor was stiff but genuine. By the end of the brunch, the transformation was remarkable. James's father had emerged from his study, actually smiled at Melissa, and engaged in conversation with her parents. Whatever rift had formed was beginning to heal, buffered by good food and the relief of having salvaged at least part of the wedding celebration. As we packed up our equipment, Melissa approached me in the kitchen, her eyes red but dry. "I don't even know how to begin thanking you," she said. "The payment already cleared," I replied with a small smile. "That's thanks enough." "No, it's not about the money." She shook her head. "You saved us today. After I treated you so terribly, you still came through when we needed help. I don't deserve your kindness." I paused in my work, turning to face her fully. "Family is complicated, Melissa. We fight, we make mistakes, we learn. Hopefully." "I've definitely learned," she said with a rueful laugh. "The hard way. I should have valued your work from the beginning. I was so focused on having the perfect wedding that I lost sight of what really matters." Marcus caught my eye from across the kitchen, giving me a subtle nod of approval. The genuine remorse in Melissa's voice was unmistakable. "Consider it a very expensive lesson," I said, returning to packing up my knives. "One that hopefully none of us will need to repeat." "Definitely not," she agreed. "And Ricky, your food really is amazing. I should have been proud to pay for it, not trying to get it for free." As we finished loading our vehicles, James approached with an envelope. "This is in addition to the agreed payment," he said, handing it to me. "A token of our appreciation for saving the day." Inside was a generous tip for the entire team, along with a handwritten note promising referrals to their extensive social network, not for exposure but as a genuine recommendation of our professional services. It seemed the lesson had indeed been learned, though at a higher cost than anyone had anticipated. 6 months after the wedding debacle, my phone rang with a call from Melissa. Our relationship had been slowly mending with occasional family dinners and tentative text exchanges, but this was her first direct call since the brunch. "Ricky, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important," she began. "Just reviewing some menu ideas," I replied. "What's up?" "I have a potential client for you. My friend Charlotte is hosting a charity gala next month for the Children's Hospital. After hearing about how you saved our brunch, she's interested in hiring Flavors of Boston." I was momentarily speechless. This was exactly the type of high-profile event that could elevate a catering business to the next level. "That sounds great," I managed. "Would you mind connecting us via email?" "Already done," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "I sent her your contact information this morning with my highest recommendation. And Ricky, I made sure she knows your work commands premium rates." True to her word, Charlotte's email arrived that afternoon outlining an event for 150 of Boston's most influential philanthropists. Unlike Melissa's original request, this included a proper budget allocation for catering recognition of our business in the event program and a clear understanding of the value we would bring. This referral was just the beginning. Over the next few months, Melissa became one of our most enthusiastic advocates, recommending Flavors of Boston to her extensive network of friends and associates. These weren't vague promises of exposure, but concrete paying jobs with clients who respected our work and compensated us accordingly. The change in Melissa herself was equally remarkable. The wedding disaster had been a harsh but effective lesson in humility. She began showing genuine interest in my business, asking thoughtful questions about our operations, and even offering to help at a charity event we catered for a local food bank. During a family dinner at my grandmother's house, I watched in amazement as Melissa corrected Aunt Patricia when she suggested that her friend's daughter might want me to help out with her engagement party. "Ricky doesn't help out," Mother Melissa interjected firmly. "He runs a professional catering business, with employees who depend on him. If Sharon wants flavors of Boston at her event, she should contact them through proper channels and expect to pay their standard rates." Aunt Patricia looked startled but nodded in agreement. The family dynamics had shifted subtly, but significantly. One evening, James invited me for drinks at a upscale bar in Back Bay. Over craft cocktails, he confided that the wedding experience had changed their relationship for the better. "It forced us to have some difficult conversations about money, family expectations, and how we make decisions together," he explained. "Oddly enough, I think we're stronger for having gone through it." "And what about the house?" I asked, remembering the threatened wedding gift. He smiled. "We got the down payment. After seeing how Melissa handled the aftermath, taking responsibility, making things right, my parents were impressed. They said it showed character. The most profound change, however, was in my own approach to business and family boundaries. The experience had forced me to articulate and defend my professional worth, not just to others, but to myself. I no longer felt guilty for treating my catering company as a legitimate business, rather than a convenient skill to be called upon at family members' whims. Marcus noticed the difference in my demeanor during client meetings. "You're not apologizing for your rates anymore," he observed after we landed a significant corporate contract. "It's about time." "I learned that respecting my own work is the first step to getting others to respect it," I replied. The business thrived under this new confidence. We expanded our team, adding 2 more full-time staff members and a dedicated event coordinator. Our calendar was booked 3 months in advance with a waiting list for popular dates. Roughly 6 months after the wedding, I met Melissa for coffee. She arrived carrying a small gift bag, which she pushed across the table toward me. "What's this?" I asked. "Just a small thank you," she said. "Go ahead, open it." Inside was a framed copy of a feature article from Boston Society magazine, the same publication she had once dangled as exposure for catering her wedding. The article was a glowing profile of flavors of Boston, highlighting our innovative approach to local ingredients and naming us as one of the city's top up-and-coming catering services. "I might have mentioned your name to the editor," Melissa admitted with a smile. "But the recognition is all earned. They've apparently been hearing about you from multiple sources." I was touched by the gesture, particularly knowing how much it represented Melissa's growth. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "This means a lot." "I should be thanking you," she replied. "You taught me an important lesson about respecting other people's work and talents. It's changed how I approach everything, not just catering." As we parted ways that day, I reflected on the journey we'd taken. What had begun as an unreasonable request had ultimately strengthened my business, improved family relationships, and taught valuable lessons all around. The experience reinforced what I had always suspected but sometimes struggled to implement, that real family supports your success rather than undermining it, that proper boundaries actually improve relationships rather than damage them, and the fording and the mining. That standing up for yourself earns more genuine respect than constantly giving in to unreasonable demands. My relationship with Melissa was now stronger than ever, built on mutual respect rather than obligation or exploitation. My brother Jake and I had formed an even tighter bond through his unwavering support during the conflict. Even Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert had come to view my business with newfound respect, proudly mentioning my nephew the chef in social conversations. Most importantly, I had learned to value my own work appropriately. No more discounts out of guilt or obligation, no more apologizing for charging professional rates, no more questioning whether my business deserved the same respect as any other. Sometimes the hardest decisions, the ones that feel selfish or uncomfortable in the moment, ultimately lead to the best outcomes for everyone involved. Standing firm on my boundaries wasn't just about protecting my business, It was about establishing the foundation for healthier, more authentic relationships with everyone in my life. So if you're facing a similar situation with family or friends who don't value your professional skills, remember that respect is earned through standing up for yourself, not by giving in to unreasonable demands. What difficult boundary have you had to set with family or friends around your work or business? Leave a comment below and let me know if you've experienced something similar. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating the complicated intersection of family and business. Thanks for listening to my story, and remember, your work has value no matter who's asking for it.